Hi guys, and welcome to today's lesson. So we're going to be doing some more digital work as we have been this term. And this time we're going to be doing kind of like a costume, more of a figure study. So got this guy in some armour that I found on Unsplash. And I want to do a study, so mostly kind of looking at the reflections in his armour. And possibly adding in, possibly omitting the kind of background elements as well. But we'll probably start with just him today, and maybe add the background elements later. So the first thing I want to do is just change my background to match something that's sort of like maybe an average tone in the reference, so in his armour. So we want to try to make, yeah, there we go. So I've pulled across that colour, and we're going to make a new layer to start sketching. And for the sketch, I won't use a super dark colour, we'll use a kind of like slightly slightly darker kind of earthy tone. We want to begin just really quickly, we're going to try to just get his sort of gesture in basically. So this is his arm, kind of connecting up to that arm piece. And we've got his hand. His sword. And we'll get his breastplate in. So I'm just sort of approaching it as basically lots of abstract shapes we're starting with, which either will or won't be correct, and then if they're not correct, we just make changes to them. So I just want to show you that kind of very loose, simple approach to getting stuff blocked in. Just going to get an eraser that's the same kind of brush. And then we've got his his hand is holding this rose. And then his sort of lower element of his chest or his upper body armour sitting in there. And his legs, his legs emerge below that. Apologies for my cat wants to let out of the room, I'm just going to let her out. Back to drawing. So we've got the overall kind of very vague shapes starting to emerge, you can sort of see there. And what we want to start doing now is just finding where we need darker shapes, where we need to expand stuff maybe. So this little kind of edge, I'm thinking I might move the whole thing across a little bit, just so we've got more space on the right hand side, because I think we're good on the left. Maybe just drop it down a touch as well. So he's got this shadow that kind of cuts into his helmet. So we can pull some shadow down here. His legs generally, leg armour's a little bit dimmer. And a lot of his arm armour's quite dim as well. So you can see getting those shadows in kind of makes a lot more sense of what we're looking at. So that's why I try to get the shadows in fairly early, even though it seems like a fairly kind of advanced thing to be putting in. Now, if we were to be adding in some background elements, I'll kind of put a suggestion of it. We've got kind of that fence behind him. And we can also take, so I'm going to take a slightly lighter tone and start getting, sort of raising the lighter parts of the drawing up a little bit as well. So that as well as the kind of shadow reflections, we're starting to get a sense of the highlights as well. Still emerging in this very like loose, sketchy, smudgy way. Yeah, that's not looking too bad. So what I'm going to do now is take a slightly darker colour, because it's pretty light, this one that I had been using. Slightly darker, I'm going to swap to a Procreate pencil, which is another sketching tool I like. And what I want to do is start kind of trying to find little kind of like anchors. So like, say that little dark note there, maybe this little kind of underpoint. Certainly kind of make sure I get this flat part of the chest plate blocked in, maybe things like where that strap goes. But you can sort of see these little kind of notes and accents help kind of, they're going to help me guide where I put my detail next. So things like strong directional changes, you would definitely want to try to find where, say, this cutaway sits, for instance, those sorts of things. So we want to start to get some of those little details in. So I'm just going to get another kind of dark, warm colour. This is a little bit darker than what I had been using. And I can maybe make a note, where's the back of his head actually going to sit? So maybe about there. So yeah, we've got most of the head in. What I want to maybe do is just push, I feel like it's a little bit wide possibly. So what I want to do is just almost kind of erase, because we've got that darker tone behind. I'm just going to pull, yeah, that feels a bit better. Pull in the back kind of elements of the helmet a bit. And this is only the sort of first pass. So we'll be going in and refining these elements, which is why I'm trying to hold off on doing too much detail. I always say in my lessons that you should refrain from doing loads of detail early on. So we want that little scoop of the neck part kind of cutting across there. I'm going to go back to being got a little bit too tight, so I just want to get a little bit sketchier. Erase back into this a bit as well, kind of push that out. Yes, let's go back to more of a sort of sketchy approach. And getting that note in as well that I mentioned, so I want to try to get that in. Let's go back to getting some of these notes, just kind of correcting what I'm doing, because you don't want to, you don't want to just get into like a habit or a kind of rut. With how you're approaching your drawing, because there'll probably always be things that it sort of, maybe you're not kind of doing optimally, or so getting some of the plating kind of a bit more precisely blocked in. Not precisely, but so until you can sort of see, get some of those lines, those divisions in place, get a little bit more of a shadow under here. So anywhere I know, once I kind of get the line in and it seems about right, I can go a bit darker with my shadows. So we can get that elbow joint ellipse as well. There's a little bit of a kind of triangle shadow behind that. So I've just moved back up to the shoulder because I kind of feel like looking at the whole, maybe the shoulder kind of pops out a little bit too much. Let's kind of push that back in a little bit. So a little bit more out for the thumb, which I was kind of missing. So that brings us across to the reverse side. The belt we're going to put in like really simply this session. I mean, all of it's pretty simple, essentially. Purposely trying not to put too much detail. We are going to be getting colour in subsequent sessions, but today we're just kind of working out a plan for that using a sort of grisaille approach. We've not even gone not gone to sort of full white tones or full dark tones either. We're just kind of working in between at the moment, figuring stuff out. Yeah, so that's not looking too bad. I might just get pure black. I'm just going to do a few, just so we sort of start to get some black into it. Some of the really dark notes, now that we've got more of it figured out. Just a few of those here and there, starting to place them. And also get some pure white as well. Start laying that in certain places where we're going to be going brighter. And yeah, that's not a bad point to stop for today. So we've got the basic kind of form sketched in, the proportions. You kind of get the idea of the approach. So like how we start simpler, how we then begin to add more detail, but we haven't added loads of detail yet. We'll be doing that in future sessions. We're just beginning with getting roughly the correct proportions, starting to get a feel for all the different interactions, in this case with his armour. But if we were doing something like drapery, we'd be looking at different sort of stuff. Yeah, so we're just starting to try to get a feel for everything. Starting to build tones up, but not going immediately into all the darkest tones. You can see now I'm sort of starting to get some darker bits in. I won't do too much more because this is the end of the session for today. But next week we'll be developing this a lot. You can see even just kind of popping in those shadows using the peppermint brush kind of helps make more sense of everything that's going on in the piece. And we'll be developing that more next week. But yeah, that's a good point, I think, to stop for today. And yeah, as always, if you've got any questions, just pop them in the comments and I'll definitely get to them. I always get back to everyone who asks anything. And if you want to keep up to date with other videos from myself, other tutors at the school or students' work as well, we're always sharing that on YouTube. And if you want to see the sorts of paid qualifications the school offers, you can click the link in the description as well. But yeah, that's it for now, and I will see you guys next week.